I woke up screaming, not the kind of scream that fades into a gasp, the kind you can brush off as a bad dream. No, this was raw, guttural, the sound of someone who just felt their ribs crack under the weight of a steering wheel. My hands flew to my chest, clawing at unbroken skin, my lungs burning like I'd been drowning seconds ago. But there was no blood, no twisted metal, no Daniel walking away. Just my bedroom. The same dull morning light slicing through the curtains, the same stupid floral wallpaper I'd hated since we moved in. The clock on the nightstand blinked 7:03 a.m. I knew that time. I'd memorized it. Because this was the morning of the accident. My breath came in jagged bursts as I stumbled to the mirror, half expecting to see a corpse staring back. But there I was, alive. No glass shards embedded in my cheek, no hollow-eyed pallor of someone bleeding out on asphalt. Just me, Leah, the one who wasn't worth turning back for. The memories hit like a fist. Daniel's hand squeezing mine in the car, his laugh when Camilla joked about my unlucky streak. The headlights swerving into our lane, the way he'd looked at me just for a second before he hoisted Camilla into his arms and ran. "Hold on, Leah. I'll send help." Liar. The only thing he'd sent was a voicemail 3 days later, his voice thick with something that wasn't quite guilt. "You're okay, right?" I dug my nails into my palms. The pain was real. This was real. A hysterical laugh bubbled up. Of course I'd gotten a second chance. Not a graceful rebirth, no divine intervention. Just me, spat back into my own life like a punchline. "Oh, you thought you were done? Try again, sweetheart." My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. "Don't forget dinner tonight. Cam's bringing champagne." The text was identical, word for word, as if the universe was taunting me. I stared at it until the screen went dark, then I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a satisfying crack. No, not this time. I yanked open my laptop, fingers flying over the keys. Cancelled the reservation at La Belle Étoile. Family emergency, so sorry. Sent a group text to my parents. Something came up. Rain check? Their replies were instant. Camilla's big news can't wait. Fine, let them have their golden child's victory lap. Because I had work to do. By noon, I'd emptied the joint account, left a single $1, a petty little fuck you, and sold the emerald necklace Mum gave me last Christmas. Camilla got diamonds. The pawnshop guy raised an eyebrow at the engagement ring. "Sure you want to part with this?" I smiled. "It's cursed." The crash wouldn't happen tonight. But the wreckage? Oh, that was just beginning. The champagne flute felt like a prop in my hands. Something to hold so I wouldn't look as out of place as I felt. La Belle Étoile was all crystal and candlelight, the kind of restaurant where people whispered and silverware never clinked too loud. Perfect for an engagement dinner. At least, that's what Daniel had said when he made the reservation. But then, Camilla walked in 10 minutes late, her heels clicking like a metronome counting down my patience, her dress the exact shade of red that made everyone turn their heads. "Sorry, I'm late," she laughed, air-kissing our parents before sliding into the seat beside Daniel. "Big day at the office. You wouldn't believe the deal I just closed." And just like that, the evening pivoted. The waiter brought the bottle Daniel had picked out, Dom Perignon, because nothing but the best for my future wife. But it was Camilla who reached for it first. "Let me," she said, flashing that pageant smile, the one that made people forgive her for things like hijacking someone else's celebration. The cork popped, and my parents clapped like she'd just cured cancer. Daniel raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said, but his eyes flicked to Camilla when he said it. I took a sip. The champagne tasted like vinegar. "So," Mom said, leaning in, "tell us about this client, Camilla." Camilla launched into her story, some tech billionaire, some once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. while Dad nodded like she was delivering the State of the Union. I tried to interject, to steer the conversation back to the ring on my finger. The wedding plans, the life Daniel and I were supposed to be building. We were thinking of a winter wedding, I said too loud. Mum didn't even look up from refilling Camilla's glass. Then the wine happened. Camilla's elbow accidentally knocked over her Merlot, a dark stain blooming across the front of my dress like a bruise. "Oh my God, Leah, I'm so sorry," she gasped, dabbing at it with a napkin. But the damage was done. Daniel laughed, actually laughed, like it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. "Classic Cam," he said, like her chaos was charming instead of calculated. I excused myself to the bathroom, where I scrubbed at the stain until my hands were raw. The mirror showed a stranger, a woman in a ruined dress, her smile brittle as glass. When I came back, they were toasting again. To Camilla, of course. No one noticed I never raised my glass. The car ride home was quiet, the kind of silence that sits heavy in your lungs. Daniel hummed along to the radio, his fingers tapping the wheel. Camilla dozed in the back seat, her phone still glowing with congratulatory texts. And me? I stared out the window, counting streetlights like they were reasons to stay. Then the headlights swerved. The last coherent thought I had before impact wasn't about love or fear or even anger. It was this. Of course, even the crash is about her. Because when the world stopped spinning, Daniel was already unbuckling his seatbelt, already reaching for Camilla, and I was just there, waiting, always waiting. The pain disappeared first. That was what shocked me. One moment I was choking on blood, my vision tunnelling to the sight of their taillights fading into the night. The next, I stood in a void so blindingly white it made my eyes water. No hospital, no wreckage, just nothing. And then the coughing started. Not mine. I turned to see a figure slumped over a floating desk, hacking into a celestial handkerchief. "Oh, third soul today with pulmonary trauma," the being grumbled, voice like a chain-smoking receptionist at the DMV. "You'd think after inventing seatbelts, you people would... Oh, you're still here." It blinked at me through round glasses that materialised out of nowhere. The nameplate on the desk read, Azrael, Junior Soul Processing Associate, Temp. "Let me guess," Azrael sighed, flipping through a glowing clipboard. "Car accident. Fiancé chose your sister. Died feeling spectacularly unseen. Yawn." They snapped their fingers, and my entire life flashed by in a holographic reel. Every birthday forgotten, every achievement overshadowed, every time Daniel's hand slipped from mine to steady Camilla instead. "Look," I started, but as Azrael held up a taloned hand. "Save the sob story. We're backlogged since the Renaissance." They squinted at my file. "Says here you qualify for a do-over. Some cosmic glitch about unfulfilled potential." A smirk twisted their androgynous face. "Though between us, you got hosed." The offer came with bureaucratic nonchalance. Return to the morning of the crash, memories intact. No guarantees, no divine intervention. Just me and my rage against the timeline. "What's the catch?" I asked. Azrael's grin turned feral. "Oh, honey, you're the catch." They leaned in, the void suddenly smelling of burnt coffee and cheap toner. "People like you either change everything or burn it all down. Either way," a contract materialised in midair. "Entertaining for the Home Office." I reached for the pen, then paused. "Will they remember the other timeline? Would it matter if they did?" The truth tasted like blood and champagne. No, nothing had ever mattered to them before. I signed. The last thing I heard before waking in my bed was Azrael's chuckle. Pro tip, pawn the ring first. Then the screaming started. My own. Alive. The phone buzzed again. Daniel's third text in 10 minutes. You sure you're okay? You never cancel plans. I could practically hear the frown in his words, that patronising concern he wore like a cheap cologne whenever I disrupted his perfect little narrative. I thumbed out a reply without thinking. Migraine. Have fun without me. The lie came easier this time. Outside, rain smeared the city into a watercolour blur, the same storm that had slicked the roads that night. The same storm that wouldn't claim me now. I paced my apartment, the walls too close, the air too thick. Every ticking second was a countdown to an apocalypse only I knew was coming. Then it hit me. I didn't have to just survive today. I could weaponize it. The laptop glowed like a beacon in the dim light. 3 keystrokes cancelled the reservation at La Belle Étoile, family emergency dripping with faux regret. Another 5 transferred every cent from our joint account to one they couldn't touch. The confirmation email landed in my inbox with a quiet ping. $1 left, a monument to how little I was worth to them. My fingers hovered over my parents' contact. Last time. They'd texted back in under a minute when Camilla sneezed wrong. 3 hours later, when I was intubated in the ER, I typed slowly, savouring each letter. Something came up. Rain check. The response was instant. Camilla's presentation is tonight. We'll do your dinner next week. I laughed. A sharp, broken sound. Next week. Always next week. The clock struck 6. Right on the schedule, my phone lit up with Daniel's caller ID. I silenced it and turned toward the window, where headlights streaked through the rain below. Let them go. Let them laugh and toast and never see what's coming. I had work to do. The bank teller's polished nails clicked against her keyboard as she squinted at my ID. You want to close all 3 accounts today? Her voice carried that particular blend of suspicion and boredom, reserved for women moving money without a man's permission. I pushed the ring across the counter. And I need this appraised. The diamond caught the fluorescent lights, throwing prisms across the teller's name tag. Marisol. She held it up to the light, eyebrows lifting. This is a 3-carat Tiffany? Was, I corrected, sliding the paperwork toward her. The forms smelled like ink and judgment. Marisol's gaze flicked to my bare left hand, then back to my face. She didn't ask questions. Smart woman. The safe deposit box came next. Daniel's grandmother's pearls, the stock certificates from when we'd played at being investors, the embarrassing stack of love letters he'd written during our first year together, back when he still remembered my coffee order. I fed them all to the industrial shredder in the corner, watching paper snow collect in the bin. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Daniel, again. Where are you? Cam's asking about you. I blocked his number mid-text. The pawn shop smelled like desperation and lemon polish. The owner, a grizzled man with one cloudy eye, whistled when I emptied the velvet box onto his glass counter. Somebody's having a bad day. Somebody's about to have several, I tapped the stone. How much for quick sale? He weighed it on a tiny scale. 12 grand, no questions. Make it 15 and I'll throw in the matching earrings. The cash felt heavier than it should have when he counted it into my hands. $27,000 total, between the jewellery and the liquidated accounts. Enough to disappear. Enough to start over. I stopped at a payphone outside the shop. The kind of relic people only notice when they need to do something untraceable. The receiver smelled like stale cigarettes and bad decisions as I dialed the number for Merrill Lynch Wealth Management. James's Abernathy's office? A crisp voice answered. I pitched my voice higher, sweeter, the way Camilla always talked to powerful men. Hi, this is Camilla Whitmore. I need to make some urgent changes to my portfolio. By the time James realised his star client hadn't actually authorised selling all her Tesla shares at a loss, I'd be on a plane to Belize. The sun was setting as I walked past La Belle Étoile's glowing windows. Through the glass, I saw them. Daniel's hand on Camilla's shoulder, my father refilling her wine, my mother's adoring gaze. They hadn't even noticed my empty chair. I adjusted the wire transfer receipt in my pocket and hailed a cab. Let them keep their champagne. I had a war to fund. The coffee shop Wi-Fi was slow, but anonymity had its price. I sipped my latte, extra shot, no sugar, the way Daniel never remembered, as the encrypted file finished uploading to a dummy account. The document glowed on my screen. Whitmore and Associates Client Trust Fund discrepancies. Q3 2023. Camilla's masterpiece, her downfall. I'd found it 3 days ago in her cloud storage, protected by the password she'd used since high school. Diamond 1. The spreadsheet was almost artistic in its deception. Client funds shifted here, phantom expenses there, all carefully balanced to avoid scrutiny, until someone looked too close. The whistleblower site loaded with a cheerful ding. Thank you for your submission. Your identity remains protected. I attached the files with a flourish, then paused at the description box. Concerned citizen, I typed. Thought that CC should know about Whitmore and Associates Creative Accounting. P.S. Check the offshore transfers to Grand Cayman. Page 42 is particularly interesting. I hit send. The progress bar crawled. Across the street, the Whitmore and Associates logo gleamed in polished brass. Right on schedule, Camilla strode through the glass doors in her signature crimson heels, her laugh carrying across the plaza as she greeted the doorman. She'd just closed the Varna deal yesterday, the one that was supposed to cement her partnership. The champagne celebration was still sticky on her Instagram. My phone buzzed, an alert from the financial app I'd linked to her accounts. $2,500 transfer to BVI Holdings LLC, right on schedule. I opened Twitter and created a new account, @TruthAboutWhitmore. The first tweet was a screenshot of the transfer with a simple caption, "Where do client funds really go?" I tagged every finance journalist I could find. Then I waited. It took 6 hours. The first reply came from an investigative reporter at the Times. DM me. By midnight, #Whitmore scandal was trending. The news broke over breakfast. I watched it unfold live on CNBC while stirring honey into my tea. Camilla's face pixelated, then sharpened on screen, her perfect smile frozen as the anchor said the words alleged embezzlement and SEC investigation. Her office line rang off the hook. Her cell buzzed incessantly, first with clients, then with reporters, finally with our parents. I knew because I'd forwarded her call log to my burner phone. The best part? The Varna Group's press release at noon. We have immediately severed ties with Whitmore and Associates pending full audit. I saved the voicemail she left Daniel, her voice cracking. I don't understand who would... This has to be a mistake. Mistake. That's what they always called it when consequences finally came knocking. I closed the laptop and smoothed the printout on my desk. A single boarding pass for Cayman Airways, one way. Camilla always said she wanted to live somewhere tropical. I was happy to help her run. His knuckles rapped against my new apartment door in that familiar rhythm. 3 quick taps, then 2 slower ones. Our old secret knock from college, back when he'd show up with coffee and a smile that made my stomach flip. Now, it just made my fingers tighten around the pepper spray in my pocket. I watched through the peephole as he ran a hand through his rain-damp hair, the platinum band of his Rolex catching the hallway light, still wearing the watch I'd saved 6 months to buy him, still checking his reflection in my windows. "Leah, come on," he called, voice tinged with that particular blend of frustration and condescension I knew so well. "We need to talk about Camilla." Of course we did. I waited until he pulled out his phone, probably to text about how unreasonable I was being, before I yanked the door open. His startled expression was almost worth the nausea that came with smelling his cologne again. "You look like shit," I said cheerfully. And he did. Dark circles bruised his under eyes, his usually crisp dress shirt was wrinkled, and the hand holding his phone bore a fresh paper cut. The Camilla effect in full force. His gaze darted past me, scanning my sparse living room, like he might find answers in the unpacked boxes. Where the hell have you been? Your office said you quit. Your landlord said you moved. And now, he brandished his phone at me, screen displaying today's Wall Street Journal headline, Whitmore and Associates under federal investigation. Do you have any idea what Camilla's going through? I leaned against the doorframe, savouring the way his jaw tightened when I didn't invite him in. Let me guess. Tears, tantrums, and a Xanax prescription? That's not funny. He stepped closer, looming the way he always did when he wanted to intimidate me into submission. People are saying she stole money. That's insane. You know her. I know she's been skimming from client accounts since her first promotion. I watched the colour drain from his face. I know she transferred 50 grand to the Caymans last month. And I know... I plucked his phone from his slack grip, swiping to his banking app. That you loaned her $8,000 yesterday. Which, by the way, I tossed the phone back. You'll never see again. The realization hit him in waves. First confusion, then dawning horror. You did this? I smiled. He grabbed my wrist, fingers digging into the scar from the car accident that never happened. What the fuck is wrong with you? She's your sister. Funny. I twisted free, relishing his flinch when he saw the glint of my new knife in my other hand. You didn't care about family when you left me to die. For the first time in 7 years, Daniel Whitmore looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the exact moment he realised the woman he'd proposed to was gone. I slammed the door in his face. Through the wood, I heard him whisper, Jesus Christ. I pressed my forehead to the cool surface, grinning. Let him pray. It wouldn't help. The doorbell rang at precisely 8:17 p.m, right on schedule. I'd known they'd come, not when I disappeared for weeks, not when the hospital called about my mysterious absence after the accident that wasn't. But the second Camilla's golden reputation tarnished. Suddenly, they remembered they had another daughter. I opened the door to find them standing shoulder to shoulder like a united front, Dad's Burberry coat still damp from the rain, Mum's knuckles white around her Fendi purse. The same way they'd stood outside Camilla's prep school after she plagiarised her valedictorian speech, ready to negotiate with the principal. Lillian, Dad began, using the full name he only pulled out for disappointments. I stepped aside, gesturing to the apartment. Come to audit me too. Mum swept past, her perfume. That same Chanel No. 5 she'd worn since I was 5, clinging to the air like a ghost. This isn't funny. Do you realise what you've done to your sister? I poured myself a glass of wine, letting the silence stretch. The news played quietly in the background, another update about Camilla's frozen assets. Dad cleared his throat. We need you to fix this. Make a statement. Say the files were doctored. Or what? I swelled them alow. You'll disown me. Forge my signature on a retraction. I nodded to the TV. The SEC doesn't care about family drama, Dad. They only care about numbers. And Camilla's were very creative. Mum's lip trembled. She could go to prison. The glass clicked against the counter as I set it down. Funny. You never worried about that when I was the one bleeding out. Their silence was louder than any apology. I opened the door again. Tell Camilla I said good luck. They left without another word. Just two shadows retreating into the elevator, still holding hands. Some things never changed. The rental car smelled like pine air freshener and someone else's bad decisions. I ran my fingers along the steering wheel, adjusting the mirrors just so. The driver's seat pushed too far forward to be comfortable. The radio preset to that terrible jazz station Daniel loved. Details mattered. I'd studied the route for days. The same winding stretch of Mulholland Drive where our lives had veered off course. The same blind curve where the oncoming truck had swerved. Only this time, I'd be the one watching. My phone buzzed with the tracking alert. Targets en route. The app I'd slipped into Daniel's cloud backup showed their dot moving steadily closer. Right on time, just like always. The cafe patio offered the perfect vantage point. I nursed an espresso, the bitter tang keeping me sharp as their silver Lexus appeared around the bend. Even from this distance, I recognised Camilla's frantic gestures through the windshield, the way Daniel kept adjusting his collar like it choked him. Their argument would be spectacular by now. The federal subpoenas, the frozen accounts, the whispers at the country club, all those carefully cultivated illusions crumbling. I waited until their car reached the exact coordinates. Then I pressed send. Daniel's phone lit up with my text, the one drafted to look like it came from his panicked mother. "Turn around! Lillian has proof about Cayman." I saw the exact moment he read it. His head jerked up, the wheel twisted. Camilla screamed. The Lexus fishtailed, tires screeching as it spun across the centre line. For one glorious second, I imagined the crunch of metal, the shatter of glass. But no. The car merely lurched to a stop halfway in the opposite lane, hazard lights blinking like a distress signal. I sipped my espresso. Daniel staggered out first, his designer shoes slipping on gravel as he rounded the car to yank open Camilla's door. She tumbled into his arms, her perfect blonde waves now a tangled mess, her manicured hands shaking as she clutched his shirt. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered in silence. "Leah," Daniel's voice cracked. There was almost an accident on Mulholland, just like..." A pause filled with the kind of realization that changes a person. "Did you..." I watched as Camilla collapsed onto the shoulder, her Valentino heels sinking into mud. "Funny," I murmured. "That's exactly what I said when you walked away." The call disconnected mid-sob. I left cash on the table and walked to my car, the sunset painting the canyon in hues of blood and gold. They'd remember this night. They'd remember me. And when the nightmares came of near misses and unanswered pleas, they'd finally understand what it felt like to be left choking on the dust of someone else's escape. The stage lights burned hotter than I expected. I blinked against the glare, my fingers tapping the clicker in a steady rhythm as the last of the audience settled into their seats. The event organizer had warned me, "Your topic is a bit unconventional for our usual programming," when I submitted my talk titled "How to Survive Being Unloved." Unconventional. That was one word for it. I adjusted the mic, letting the silence stretch just long enough to become uncomfortable. The screen behind me flickered to life with a single image. A hospital bracelet from the night that never happened, the name Lillian Whitmore barely visible under smeared blood. 5 months ago, I began, voice echoing through the stunned auditorium. I died in a car crash. At least, I was supposed to. A nervous chuckle rippled through the crowd. They thought this was metaphor. The clicker buzzed in my palm. The next slide appeared. Security footage from La Belle Étoile, time-stamped the night of my would-be accident. There we were. Daniel's hand on the small of Camilla's back, my parents clinking glasses, my empty chair pushed carelessly aside. "Here's something they don't teach you in business school," I said, pacing the stage. "The market value of a human soul." My heels clicked like a ticking clock. For my fiancé, priceless. For my family? The next slide appeared, a spreadsheet of Camilla's embezzlement complete with highlighted transfers. Approximately $287,000 and change. A woman in the front row gasped. I smiled. For 43 minutes, I took them through it all. The financial sabotage, the psychological warfare, the exquisite irony of using Camilla's own vanity password, Diamond 1, to destroy her. The cameras in the back zoomed in as I pulled out the pièce de résistance, Daniel's platinum Rolex, which I'd had engraved on the underside with property of L. Whitmore before pawning it back to the same dealer he'd bought it from. "But here's the real lesson," I said, pausing as the live stream viewer count exploded into 6 digits. "They tell you to burn bridges. I say the final slide appeared. Blueprints for my new consulting firm, Phoenix Holdings. Build better ones out of their ashes. The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. Phones lit up across the auditorium as tweets and live reactions flooded in. #unloved TED Talk trending within minutes. Backstage, my newly hired PR team handed me a tablet. CNN wanted an interview. Forbes demanded an op-ed. And, oh, there it was, the notification I'd been waiting for. Daniel Whitmore has called 7 times. I blocked the number and handed back the tablet. The world would remember this talk. But more importantly, so would they. The penthouse elevator doors slid open with a whisper, revealing the wreckage of Daniel's pride. Empty wine bottles littered the marble floor. Their labels peeled off in strips, the same nervous habit he'd had since law school. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city glittered below like scattered diamonds, indifferent to the chaos upstairs. He stood silhouetted against the skyline, tie undone, hair a mess of frustrated fingers. When he turned, his bloodshot eyes widened, not with surprise, but with something far more satisfying, recognition. He'd known I'd come. "You look terrible," I said, stepping into the foyer. The scent of his cologne had soured, mixing with the stale air of unwashed sheets and regret. Daniel's laugh was hollow. "Funny. You look..." His gaze dragged over my tailored suit, the new Cartier watch glinting at my wrist. "Expensive," I shrugged. "Bankruptcy suits you less." His flinch was immediate. The news had broken yesterday. Whitmore and Associates dissolved. His partnership revoked after the firm discovered his loans to Camilla. I'd sent the anonymous tip myself. A muffled sob came from the bedroom. Camilla. Of course she was here. Where else would she go? Daniel's fingers twitched towards me, then curled into fists. "Why?" The word cracked like dry wood. "Was any of it real? Us? The promises?" I cut in, strolling past him to trace a finger along the dusty grand piano, the one he'd bought to impress clients, though he never learned to play. "Funny story. That night at La Belle Étoile, I was going to leave you." His breath hitched. "Not for someone else," I continued, palinking a discordant note. "Just because." I met his gaze. "Then the truck hit, and you chose her. So really..." I smiled. "You did me a favour." The bedroom door creaked open. Camilla stood frozen in the threshold, her once pristine silk robe now frayed at the edges, her face bare of makeup for the first time in years. She looked small, breakable, nothing like the golden girl who'd spent a lifetime eclipsing me. "You," she breathed. "Me," I agreed, pulling an envelope from my blazer. "Brought you a gift." Daniel snatched it first, tearing it open with trembling hands. The plane tickets tumbled to the floor, one way to Manila, departing tonight. "What the hell is this?" "An exit strategy." I nudged the tickets with my heel. "There's a wire transfer waiting at the airport. Enough for a fresh start, not enough to come back." Camilla's knees buckled. "You can't." "I already did." I stepped closer, watching her flinch. "The alternative is federal prison. Ask Daniel. He's read the indictments." Daniel's throat worked soundlessly. He knew I was right. Knew, too, that this was mercy, the kind he'd never shown me. Camilla's tears fell in earnest now, streaking her hollow cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Oh, the words should have meant something. Once, they might have. I adjusted my cufflinks. "Be on that plane." The elevator arrived with a chime. As the doors closed, I caught the final glimpse of them. Daniel clutching the tickets like a lifeline. Camilla curled into herself on the floor, the skyline stretching endlessly behind them. They'd spend the rest of their lives wondering if I'd planned it all. If every step from the leaked files to the staged accident had been calculated. If I'd ever loved them at all. Let them wonder. My driver held the car door open as I slid inside, the leather seats cool against my skin. Where to, Miss Whitmore? I scrolled through my phone, past the interview requests, the investment offers, the dozens of unread messages from my parents, and tapped the only notification that mattered. Phoenix Holdings IPO, plus 327%. Forward, I said, and we drove.